Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Lane One Making Waves. This week on the podcast, we have three-time Olympic gold medalist and one of the most respected and recognized names in the sport of swimming, Brooke Bennett. Brooke lives a life deeply connected to the water. Within this conversation, we touch on what it was like reaching the Olympics at such a young age to where her passion for water safety and swimming has led her today. There are so many pieces of advice throughout this conversation, so stay tuned and I hope you enjoy. Brooke, thank you so much for joining me today. I know you've worn a lot of hats in the swimming community, from 3 Olympic gold medals to mentor, advocate, public speaker, but I'd like to go back to the very beginning. So what first got you involved in swimming, and when did you know you could pursue this as more than just a hobby?
So swimming was introduced to me pretty much as a baby. My mom's parents moved down from Indiana and just knew the importance when they were building a pool as the grandkids were born that we needed to be acclimated to the water and we needed to be safe. My grandfather kind of was the one that pursued it to go further in the very beginning. And I want to say, if before that he was athletic, baseball and basketball, and then obviously athletics and being a professional athlete was non-existent back in the day.
Yeah.
So that was no way to support a family and stuff. So he kind of did it recreational and then went on to his careers. But later in life, when they were living in Bloomington, Indiana and IU, of course, Mark Spitz was there training
Yes.
for his Olympic Games and his 7 gold and 7 world records. And so I think in the back of like my grandfather's mind, he was inspired by just lap swimming during that time. Um, and not that he was friends with Mark Spitz, but my grandfather would talk to anybody and be friends with anybody. So I'm sure there were conversations, not that Mark Spitz would know who my grandfather was, but to us and growing up, and they had a pool, and we were always over there. So myself and 2 of my cousins were all kind of born within the same year. So the 3 of us were learning at the same time from my grandmother and grandfather. And when they say like literally you're thrown in the pool and you learn how to swim, I mean, I don't recall it, but it would probably be pretty exact on how it was done.
Yeah.
um, and I just loved being in the pool. And, every summer and pretty much year round, I mean, there's only a couple of months in Florida that you're not going to swim. And as little kids, you don't care if it's cold or hot. So, where my cousins would want to take a break and go do other things, I just would be in the pool just all day. And so I really was essentially like a water baby. Um, and I was a very hyperactive kid.
Mhm.
So as I got a little bit older, 3, 4, 5 years old, um, I the pediatrician was having conversations with my mom about, oh, we could put her on this medication or this medication. And it was the very beginning of like, I would claim like the ADHD symptoms.
Mhm.
And my mom was just like, no, we're just not going to do that. And so putting me on a swim team and taking me to swim practice every evening was the outlet of the crazy energy that I had. And as I got into school, it allowed me to focus on school because I could burn off excess energy. So it just became that. And the summer of 88 was the first time I recall watching like swimming on TV, which was the Olympics. And
Mhm.
I saw Janet Evans swim. And I think I went into school the start. So that would have been like the start of 3rd grade for me. And I think I went into school and on like one of the first days said that I was going to be an Olympic swimmer. And that's kind of how the dream started. I loved it and loved training it and was very motivated by just watching the Olympic Games.
Yeah. No, I kind of have a very similar experience, except it was you that I was that I was looking up to. So I know you went to the Olympics in '96 and also in
Yep.
2000, but I vividly remember having a school assignment one day. I think I was in maybe second or third grade, and we had to dress up like our idol or someone we wanted to be when we grew up, or some historic icon that kind of resonated with us. And I show up into school, this little 8-year-old with an American flag cap on, and I think I wrote Bennett on the side of it. And so it's funny because, those memorable experiences, they happen for so many of us, but
Yeah.
each of us it's a different icon moving forward. So mine was you.
Oh, thank you. I mean, and it's funny because obviously my career went on, and I got to travel with Janet Evans, and I was at her last Olympics in Atlanta and my first. And it was always claimed as, in media, it's the passing of the torch, and
Yeah.
to where it's very exciting for one athlete, it's very sad for the other. It's very hard to be at that level and train at that level. But and then I look now, and I look at everything like Katie Ledecky is
Yeah.
doing for the sport of swimming and distance swimming, and of course your brother Bobby. And I love finally seeing like distance athletes being talked about almost more than sprinters. Love all swimmers, but
Yes.
give the distance swimmers some love, okay? But I was at Olympic trials, and I had the pleasure to give Katie Ledecky her Olympic trials gold medal when she qualified for her first Olympic Games. And it kind of felt like that. I mean, I had been far removed, and Caitlin Sandino and Katie Hoff and all of those other amazing distance women were in there. But I remember being in Omaha and watching Katie swim that 800. And I believe I told her coach, I was like, I go, she's just going to be something sensational. Like, I just remember watching it. So, and again, if it's the passing of the torch or whatever, it's again, it's sad that the highlight of your career and stuff, there's a peak and then it's over
Mhm.
with.
Yeah.
And there really is no gradual downfall. It's just kind
Yeah.
of like you're there and then you're retiring.
Mhm.
Uh, but it's great to hear those stories and kind of those full circle moments of, I was once there, then you were there, and then we sit here and we watch Katie continue to do amazing things. So I love the sport of swimming.
Yeah, no, it's truly incredible, and I get chills just like thinking about the past experiences. And I mean, I'm a little biased too, distance swimmers, we need more publicity. And so it's been so fun, as you said, to see Katie and to see Bobby kind of take the forefront for Team USA and be those figures that our team can depend on because more often than not in the past, it was always the sprinters that were talked about. So it's really fun and it's really special to kind of see this transition in
Oh
swimming.
yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Can you tell us a little bit about your early training environment? Who are the people around you that helped shape your path as a swimmer?
So I really, I was on one swim team for a very short period of time out of the Boys and Girls Club. They were the only ones that kind of said, well, if she can do the four strokes and she can hang with the program, yes, we'll accept her. And it was the summer that I was turning 5. Every other program was kind of like, wait another couple of years. So they really jump started my career, and I swam with them for about 4 years. Then I was lucky enough because our team was affiliated with the Boys and Girls Club many years later. In early 2000, I was able to be inducted into the Boys and Girls Club Hall of Fame, which is a pretty deep Hall of Fame because it just doesn't generate around athletes. It generates around performers and actors and actresses. And I mean, Jennifer Lopez is in the Boys and Girls Hall of Fame. So that one is kind of fun and different because you have the opportunity to get inducted into many sports Hall of Fames, but this one was not just sports related. Um, So that was like the early on, they kind of gave me my start and my platform. And then I wanted more, and my parents felt like if I was really going to pursue this Olympic dream, I was, I mean, at 9 years old, I'm not the one to make that decision. It was my parents. And we were going to try out a number of different swim teams, and we kind of had them checked off. And I grew up in very rural Plant City, kind of between Tampa and Orlando. So we were used to driving, and my parents knew that we were going to have to commute, that there was nothing close. And so the first program that we were going to go to was kind of the one closest to us, in Brandon, with Brandon Blue Wave. And Peter Banks was the coach, and we swam, and then we went into his office and we met with him, and the practice was great. I mean, I remember the kids and everything, but when we left and we went home, my mom asked, how is everything? Do you like it? Where would you like to try next? And she kind of had this vision of, let's try all of them before we make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, this is it. Are you sure? I said, yes, this is it. And she goes, well, what makes you so certain? And as we were meeting, and we were talking to Peter, again, I wasn't talking, I was listening. I was 9 at the
Yeah.
time. What do I know? I mean, it's kind of an adult conversation and you're the kid sitting there. But what stood out for me was, on his wall behind his desk was just a sheet of paper, that you would pull out of the copier. And there was a simple pyramid on it. And it started at the bottom of the period of 1990. And it went all the way up to the year to 96. And at the top of that pyramid was the 1996 Olympics. And that's all I saw. That's all I knew. I couldn't tell you what the conversation they were having. But that piece of paper was it, and it was like drilled in my head. And I told my mom, I said, that's it. And I simply said, he wants to coach an athlete to the Olympics, and I want to be an Olympic athlete, and I'm going to be an Olympic
And that's
athlete.
me.
Done.
Yeah.
Done deal. And so my parents listened to me and said, okay, if you're happy, that's fine. And again, I think my mom was happy because she was the taxi
Mm-hmm.
going back and forth. And this was the club closest to home. And we were closer because I was swimming out in Tampa. So we were closer to home. So there were a lot of things that just fit for our family. And Peter ended up really being my sole coach for the next 20 years.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely amazing. And also hearing how supportive your parents are, I think a lot of people out there don't understand the role that, parents and caregivers have in an Olympic athlete's journey. Because as you said, it starts way before you're able to drive anywhere. So your parents are the one driving you to practices, feeding you meals, and also trusting you with that. As you said, you were 9 years old, but you could tell that your mom trusted you. She knew that you were making the right decision for you, and the rest is kind of just history.
And Summer, I think that's a great point. And I talk a lot on the relationship and role that a parent has
Hmm.
in this dream with their children, and then the role that parents have with their coach.
Yeah.
And of course, growing up and knowing your entire family, and your mom Jeannie and I have had this conversation numerous times. And even seeing Bobby's success, I've just talked about the role that they've played for all of you guys. And my mom was the one that was there. My dad was working and had a schedule and worked with the electric company. And so he was there when he could be. My mom was the one dealing with the day-to-day stuff. And I give so many credits to my parents now, because and they caught a lot of slack because I was so young. Let
Yeah.
her be a kid. Let her, doesn't she want to do this? And you know, I pushed to do everything. And there were morning practices where my mom's like, go back to bed. We're sleeping in. And I'm like, no, you have to drive me. And again, my mom would sleep in the car, or waiting to then get me to school because we lived too far away. It wasn't a 5 minute drive. I take my boys to jujitsu. It's 7 minutes down the road. I drop them off. I come home. I make dinner, and then I go back and pick them up. My mom didn't have that luxury because of where we grew up. So, the fact that my parents, let Peter and I have that relationship and never got in the way of that. I mean, I would come home and I'd be like, or complain in the car ride home. How was practice? Oh my God, I can't lift my arms. He was so mean to us. He yelled at us. We didn't do the set right. We had to start the set over. He threw a mesh bag at me. We don't do that anymore, but back in the day it happened.
Yeah.
But and my mom never went, I'm gonna have a meeting with your coach. And it was never. And it was just like, that's between you two. This is your dream. We're just here to help you pursue it. And if this is what you want, you need to take it up with him.
Yeah.
And most of the time I would be like, never mind. I'm not
You're like,
gonna
I'm
confront this
good.
big, strong Irish man at the time. As I got older, I'm like, we're not doing this, Peter. And then I would do it anyways.
Yeah.
But that was the relationship. And it's very important that athletes have that relationship with their coaches, and they don't have an interference, or parents aren't interfering unless it's absolutely necessary. Now, are there circumstances? Yes, absolutely, 100%. But when it comes to the relationship that a coach and an athlete have to build, that needs to be very kind of almost one dimensional between the coach and the athlete and the parents. Again, if there's a time to intervene and when kids are younger, there may be circumstances, but let's not interfere when everything doesn't go right, because I know, like, my relationship with Peter and the way my parents handled allowed us to have that success, allowed me to pursue those dreams and accomplish all of that kind of stuff. So it is very important. But the best story I have is Olympic trials 96 with my mom. And I was 15 at the time. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I was kind of the favored and the talked about for both the 400 and the 800. And most people that know my career, the longer the event, the better. We didn't have the mile back in my day.
Yeah.
And so I had to swim the 800, but then go to the 4. And the problem with the 400 is you have to deal with those middle distancers that are fast. And I wasn't. I just could go forever. So short on that, it didn't go right. I didn't qualify for the 400. But I had the 800. So I remember getting out of the pool, and I just remember saying to Peter, let me just warm down and then we'll talk, right? And we'll figure out what it is, but I just need to warm down. And so he and I had our conversation. I don't even recall looking at splits or talking about the swim. I was like, it's done. I wasn't faulting him for the strategy that we had. It didn't play out, but I just said, I got to focus on the 800.
Yeah.
And I was that determined. But we went, and I want to say it was late. We grabbed Subway. We go back to the hotel room. And my mom never asked about the swim. My mom never asked about what Peter and I talked about. She grabbed my bag as we walked into the hotel room and said, I'll empty your bag out and hang everything up, and go take a hot shower, and then I'll paint your toes and braid your hair. And again, it took me many years to realize this. But as I go back and I tell that story, think about it. If my mom would have questioned what happened, then I'm reliving this moment. I'm trying to get past it. I'm down on myself because I didn't qualify. Instead, my mom in that moment, and intuitively, as a mom, I don't know, I have 2 boys, and you just think in the moment of what's the best thing to say in the situation. And so intuitively, my mom had that instinct of, she's still my little girl. I was only 15, and she nurtured me as that girl. And I was still her daughter, and my parents always said that they loved me unconditionally no matter what I accomplished. But they lived and they breathed it, and they made me feel it. And I really think that in that moment, I just didn't have to worry about the outcome of one of the worst races of my career, but it allowed me to go on and focus on the 800. And then the outcome of the 800 was, winning trials and going on to the Olympic Games and winning the Olympic gold medal. And I take that whole summer off of how Olympic trials played out and with my mom that night in the
Yeah.
hotel room.
No, absolutely. There's so many things I think in, Summer's career and my career and your career that we look back on and you're just like, wow, that person was truly there for me. But when you're in the moment, you're kind of solely focused on the next race, you're focused on the outcome for what's going to happen next. And so it's hard to really thank that individual or see the impact that they've had on your
Yep.
journey. And so I know with my parents, I look back all the time and like you said, my dad slept in the car during morning practices and I'm like, they didn't have to do that, but they were
Right.
there for our dreams, which is just so special. It's
Yep.
something I can't even put into words.
Nope. It's very hard.
Yes. You made your first Olympic team at just 16 years old, which is absolutely incredible. When I was 16 years old, I had the weird side bangs. What do you remember about that time, both in terms of excitement and the pressure of your first Olympic Games?
Well, I had braces.
Oh,
So, it's like when you can't, when you compete at that level, and there's pictures
yeah.
and now the internet, it's like you want to get rid of the bad hairdo. And
Hmm.
I went from braces in 96 to wanting, and I have obviously long curly hair but I wanted it short. So I had braces at 16 and then I had this weird short haircut at 20. Not my greatest looks,
Yep.
but I was in front of the world.
Thankfully, mine were hidden.
Like, what was I thinking? Again, um, it's hard. It's really hard to fully absorb the magnitude of what it all is.
Hmm.
And then it's really hard to fully appreciate that moment of success. And I think I failed on both of those during my Olympic Games. That one, I wasn't sure how to accept the fame. You
Hmm.
have a dream of being an Olympian, but I didn't dream of being famous.
Yeah.
Um, which is funny because like people say, "Oh, I'm gonna be Insta famous,
Yeah.
an influencer," and I'm like, mm, that's
No.
not reality.
Yeah.
But whatever, that's another topic. I didn't dream to be famous. I was just kind of a country girl, wild, um, I don't know, nerdy. Loved swimming, and swimming was my world, and my friends were swimmers. And so then you're thrown into being famous, and I'm like, well, I don't want to be famous. I just wanted to win the Olympics. So
Hmm.
I didn't understand that. And I remember coming home from school, my junior year and telling my mom I just wanted to be a normal high school student, that I didn't. And I think I said at one point in time, I would give the medal up if
Wow.
I could just be normal.
Yeah.
Because there was no normal then. You kind of had to accept what normal was. But normal for me was diving back in and focusing on 2000. So that became the normal for me. And so I don't think I really took in the Olympics in Atlanta. I mean, other than it was very cool and it was fun being with my team. I was just so you're just so focused
Yeah.
on what the dream is. And then when it happens, I automatically went into, we got to do it again and we're going to do it better.
Hmm.
Instead of going, oh, this is the medal, this is what you accomplished. I was already planning for 4 years and
Yeah.
immediately back into the like water, a little bit of break and back in. And then 2000, again, I did a little bit better. And then, my goal was to go back in '04. And then that was kind of just railroaded
Hmm.
with shoulder issues and then shoulder surgeries. So there's a lot of like areas in my career where, again, there's no book, there's no explanation, and there wasn't a lot of talking about it either. I think we've gotten a lot better on talking about those things. And I even have like, I think I've even said it to your brother. Like enjoy these moments before you go on. And that's, I guess, I feel like in my role now, like I wish somebody would have said, enjoy this.
Yeah.
And maybe they did and I didn't listen. Like somebody might watch the podcast and be like, I told you, but you wouldn't listen because you're too stubborn. Yes,
Yeah.
you're right. But again, it's kind of like talking to Bobby, or I have a great relationship with Noah Lyons, who is the local windsurfer out of Clearwater, and working with him, and he's training for LA. And I tell all of them, I go, the Olympics is such a big deal every 4 years, but when you're in a sport
Yeah.
that there is no Super Bowl, there is no World Series that comes every year, you are loved for a few minutes.
Hmm.
And after your 15 minutes of fame, people don't realize who you are and what you're doing until the next Olympics comes around. And that is the sad truth of just the world that we live in. And so that's why I always say enjoy these 15 minutes of fame on whatever level you want to before you go on to, like I've told them, before you go on to LA 28. Because, I didn't do that well in 96 and I didn't do it well in 2000. And so then when '04 came around and I finished third at trials, that was just I'm going to use downfall. It's in the world of an athlete and the status that you're in my mindset, it is a downfall. It's not negative, but it's a downfall. And so I wish I would have enjoyed those two Olympic experiences a little bit more, maybe than the swallowing of not making '04 wouldn't have been so traumatic and hard. But being an elite athlete, I think on any level is a rocky road.
Yes.
I wouldn't take any of it away. I mean, I made a lot of sacrifices, even in moments when I said I wanted to be a normal kid or whatever. I mean, that was my world of normal. I think it's taken me a good 20 years removed
Hmm.
from those highlights of my career, to fully feel like my life has gone in a full circle moment,
Hmm.
that it was something so young, but I can use it now as an adult working with CFY and young kids, venturing into new things. But yeah, I mean, it's fun, but it's over so fast.
Yeah, no, it really is. And it's something that you're never really prepared for. And in the world of athletics, it can happen at any moment. It can happen at any meet, any year, any practice.
Yep.
And when you're involved in such a competitive sport or such a sport where you have to be so focused and on all the time, it is so difficult to celebrate your successes because we're constantly looking forward to, as you said, in 96, you're looking forward to 2000, and it just keeps looking forward. And so, and then it's over. And you're like,
Yep.
wow, I wish I would have slowed down a little bit and enjoyed the process because it is so special and your accomplishments are so incredible. How did you begin to redefine your identity and purpose outside of the world of elite competition?
So, it again, I think I'm 45 this year, which is like eye-opening. Because I enjoyed turning 40, and everybody's like, oh, 45, it's just a number.
Hmm.
You don't look 45. I don't feel 45, but it's 45. Like I but it's whatever. Yes, I feel great. Yes, I'm doing great things, but it's 45. Like
Yeah.
I'm 5 years from 50, which is like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Like, but you know, It was, I did a lot. I tried a lot. I did a lot. I was not one that like fell into like a career path that I was like super certain what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
Um, so I feel like I've been very lucky on some of the careers that I've had. Um, you know, uh, Working in sports broadcasting for a number of years was a lot of fun. It was something that it was fun to go on the other side because I was so used to doing this. But now
Yeah.
I also get to host podcasts and I also get to interview athletes and tell amazing stories when the other side I grew up and it was always them telling a story on me.
Hmm.
Um, Truth be told, one of the reasons why I left that field, one, I didn't like the whole hair and makeup
Yeah.
thing every That was hard as a swimmer.
Yeah.
Like I just wanted to wear a sloppy bun. Um, and then truthfully, I didn't like I was working at the time Twitter was getting really big and social media was coming into the aspect of it. And I just didn't feel like sports were sports anymore. I
Yeah.
felt it, in my opinion, it was becoming very TMZ and I didn't like it.
Hmm.
I still struggle kind of on the social media side of things, but I don't want to be like insta famous.
Yeah.
I'm okay with putting stuff out there or whatever. But again, I always say back in my career, I was like, I am so glad social media wasn't around and that you had to get the newspaper delivered to your house. You had to go to the newspaper box at the end of your street, or you had to watch the local news. There was no streaming of my races. And
Yeah.
so when NBC only showed a minute and a half of the 800, I love NBC and I love Rowdy, but you know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
didn't get to go stream it, like now you can go stream it, which I love it because I'm a total Olympics junkie and swimming junkie that I can
Yeah.
watch race. But that's the time. But I always joke, I'm so glad I wasn't in that world.
Yeah.
And then I went on after having kids and I ran my own learn to swim school locally, which I loved. And then CFY was something that I've never worked in a nonprofit. And, luckily my boss and executive director was like, well, I can teach you all of that stuff, but I can't teach you how to be 3-time Olympic gold medalist. And I was like, what does he mean by that? And then now it's kind of that full circle moment. I've stayed local. I live in this area. So it's kind of like my give back and the opportunity for me, on in a nonprofit world of making sure kids have the platform to be athletic, be
Hmm.
active, be around mentors, have peers, and one of in within our mission, we say skill building activities.
Hmm.
And I go back to how I started. And it was to be active, to be athletic, so that I could be a better student in school,
Yeah.
or I could have mentors, or I could have friends. And the Olympics part of that is totally up there in a percentage of its own.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of the message that I say. And a lot of people say, well, why CFY? And I said, well, we are supporting nearly 17,000 children in Pinellas County,
Hmm.
where many would not be able to participate because their families do not have the financial means to do so. And that's where we step in. But it is just as important for them, and I think even more so now with all the crazy distractions and the technology and everything, you cannot take away the athletics.
Yeah.
And whether they're trying to win a youth game or out of those 17,000, there was one or two that reached that very elite percentile that became an NFL athlete or an NBA all-star or whatever it may be. That is the exception of the exception,
Yeah.
but almost every other child, it's actually more important for them than that. And so I think that I get to share that message of, yes, I may be an Olympic champion, but the Olympics did not mold me into who I am. It was all the years of being involved and active that have molded me into the person that I am, or the work ethic that I have, the multitasking or whatever it is. So that's where I feel the full circle moment. It's not to inspire a young child to be an Olympic champion. It's not to inspire a young kid to make it to the NFL. That if they do, it is fantastic. It
Yeah.
is great. But molding kids to be citizens in society and
Mhm.
well-rounded individuals and good students at school, that's the full circle moment for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sport and athletics. I mean, they're such huge parts of development for children, and there's so many characteristics and development traits that you get simply from participating in sports. And CFY, Clearwater for Youth, is an incredible organization and all that you guys have been able to do with water safety and bringing water safety, as you said, to young adults and children who may not be able to afford learning how to swim or getting that outlet that a lot of other young adults or young children do have. And you're
Mhm.
currently a development manager at CFY. You help drive meaningful programs for youth. So, what is CFY's mission? And can you talk a little bit about your day to day and how you're impacting Pinellas County's youth?
Yep. So CFY Clearwater for Youth has been around since 1972. And we actually started as the program. So kids back in the day played athletics under Clearwater for Youth, and we were just in the city of Clearwater. And over the years, have expanded. We went from being kind of the program where kids would play to facilitating those funds. So as communities grow, there's more teams. So currently, we are supporting over 45 youth athletic programs in Pinellas County, um, through many different, I mean, the typical sport that you think a child is going to be involved in: baseball, softball, football, basketball, soccer, all of those. But we're funding a boxing program through the Pinellas County Sheriff's PAL League, so that kids can be exposed to boxing. We are one of the upgrowing sports is lacrosse.
Yeah,
We are helping fund local lacrosse programs. We have had conversations with youth rugby programs started. Obviously, now going into being into the Olympics, a lot of these sports. So, we have a mission of creating skill building activities for youth and children. And through athletics, we provide education, post-secondary scholarships that we've been doing since 2017.
mhm,
And we funded over $1.2 million in scholarships to high school seniors. And these are not your high school seniors that, you know, are your valedictorians, your salutatorians. These are not your ones that are getting full rides. In fact, over the last 2 years, we've had over 25 of our selected students, and this is all a blind select by our scholarship committee based off of essays and how they are numbered and ranked. So it's not like you're seeing a name or my neighbor's daughter is submitting
yeah,
a scholarship. We don't know names. And so I really always hand it off to our scholarship committee for reading all of those, because we've had over the last 2 years, over 30 of those high school seniors be the first in their families to go to
that's
college.
incredible.
And it is the difference of a 10,000 or a $5,000 scholarship over 2 years, or also we fund trade. And
Mhm.
we're really trying to focus those high school seniors to focus on trade. Not every student wants or needs to attend a 4 year college, but we've had nurses going into nursing, healthcare, estheticians, barbers, marine mechanics, all of those types of things. So that's an area that we're trying to build, that
Yeah.
I think many students don't know that it's there. I have those conversations with my 8 and 10-year old
Yeah.
about trade. Like, I'm like, look, we are not going to go into college debt. And if you're not getting a college scholarship,
Good
yeah.
option. Yeah.
So it's one of those things that we're trying to build that. And then obviously the water safety program,
Mhm.
we launched in 2022 when I started. And that's a program that we're partnered with local community and cities, along with Pinellas County Schools. And CFY funds the transportation for those kindergarten through second grade students to go to a community or city pool and receive 2 weeks of water safety lessons. And again, so these are the children in athletics, in education, in water safety, that without CFY, they do not have the step to do these things. They
Yeah.
would not, moms and dads, aunts and uncles, caregivers have to choose groceries, electric, water bill, things like that before athletics.
Mhm.
That is where CFY has a relationship with those programs that we can get those kids on those fields or in the pool. Same thing with education. We are providing this platform to where over 30 of our, 50 applicants and received scholarships in last 2 years are the first in their families to go to college, and then water safety.
Yeah.
Since we've started the water safety program, when we look at the percentages and the data, at the start of the 2 weeks when those kids first come in, we are at 80 to 85% of those children are deemed unsafe in
Mhm.
the water. And that's a very hard thing to see
Yeah.
and look at the statistics and the data on that. At the completion of the 2 weeks, that number goes down to about 20%.
Oh, wow.
And that is a program, water safety programs and lessons is one of those jobs, careers, programs that you will never know the amount of lives you've saved.
Yeah.
And the data is so hard to see, especially living in Florida. I mean, I'm hoping that through the outreach of CFY and having great relationships with Rowdy Gaines and Step Into Swim and FSPA, and then seeing the new license plate that got launched this year, Swim for Life. I actually have mine on my car now, finally.
Yay.
But that things like that, where the Swim for Life plate, now $25 of everybody's registration fee with those license plates will go back to water safety programs, including CFY in the state of Florida. So, what I love about this is that I have the Swim for Life plate, and those funds stay in the state that I live in. They
Mhm.
help with water safety lessons in the state that needs it the most. They are not going outside, right? That it's for Florida, and that has to be specific, because our drowning rate is 3 times higher than the national average. And I said it to you, and I say it a lot of times. It's water safety before swim lessons.
Mhm.
I did not, and I know your parents were the same way, and all three of you guys were in the water very early,
Yeah.
but it was the safety of knowing that you guys knew that I knew what to do in the water.
Mhm.
And I always use the word that we have to teach our children to respect the water.
Yeah.
And once they learn the respect of the water, we're now making them water safe. And then if they choose or if families choose, then it becomes swim lessons, and then it becomes swim team. And so I've tried to where it was always before, oh, swim lessons. No, 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 no. What is before? Like, you have to crawl before you walk before you run. And it's the same thing with water, that we all have the instinct of water. We're born with it. We come from that. That's what I say.
Yeah.
You are in it for 40 weeks. So the what your babies are most accustomed to is water. And so when those water safety lessons start at a very young age, we have been able to grab on to a natural instinct of what we know when we're born, to teach the water safety so that more and more children are water safe, and we're talking about it more. So that in 10 years, I hope that our drowning rates come down, but it is going to take that long. And as population and more people move to Florida, that's one of the things that was looking at during COVID when everybody decided to move to Florida because we were open.
Yeah.
Well, the population is more, so the numbers are more. So our number, it's very hard to tell, but there are a lot of things locally, and it is talked about, a lot more, and a lot more of our children that would not be able to receive water safety lessons are, and that's where it changes.
Absolutely. And I mean, I was very privileged growing up, similar to you. I was thrown into a pool and never really looked back. But there are so many, families out there that don't have the resources or it's not as accessible. And so
Yep.
accessibility is the key, and having kids be exposed to different sports and different avenues and having the help with you and CFY is just absolutely incredible. I know I was on the pool deck one of the days when the students came in. There was an
Yes.
interview with you and my mom, and seeing the look on their faces and how excited they were to get in the pool. I mean, it brought me back to when I was a
Yep.
little girl and I got chills and I was like, maybe I want to dive in again.
Well, I've never left. I've just ventured into open water.
Yes, yes.
Open water, now dabbling in some triathlons.
hmm
So again, I think that all comes back to, being active was instilled so early on
Yeah.
that it's really the only way of functionality for me.
hmm
Like even this, I'm always thinking, when am I going to get my workout in? What am I doing today? So, today it was a little bike ride from home down through Clearwater Beach and back, but I think I still have that same issue that I did when I was a kid. And that's why I've stayed active, because I'm just not able to, I'm always on to the next thing. My boss says, don't follow the shiny penny, but I'm like, ooh, what's that? Oh, what's that? Oh no, hold on a second. Grant deadline, gotta focus.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely incredible to see, your lifelong connection to the water. And open water swimming wasn't an Olympic sport until 2008, and I know you would have been the first one in that ocean competing for Team USA.
Yes. Yes,
Uh,
I would have jumped out of the pool so quickly.
so
Yeah, I would have been like, what? No.
yeah, no,
um,
absolutely.
but again, it's one of my favorite things to watch. And I really hope within the next, with LA, and I think they're gonna have beautiful venues for
Yeah,
all of the water sports. Um, and that we can, through USA Swimming and the swim programs and the swim clubs, offer more open water opportunities. I find that, and I always would joke with Bobby, because what was the one thing that he kind of talked about, what got him ready and kept him ready for Tokyo, was he came home and
hmm
he was able to go in open water when all the pools were closed.
Yep.
And I too, the same. I mean, we would go out to Clearwater Beach and we would get into the water when all the pools were closed. And I said, when are you? And he was not one that like loved it. Maybe he will later, but I
Yeah,
think it makes a great point that you cannot take a pool swimmer or even a distance swimmer, and think that they are going to be a great open water
yeah,
athlete. And we need more development
yes,
from the age group level
yes,
to get USA on top in the open water world. I mean, Haley Anderson being the first medalist for USA in London, and winning the silver medal, and with Katie Grimes being the first athlete to compete in the pool and to compete in the open water, in the US. Those are very hard things to do, and those are great accomplishments. I think what Fran Crippen did,
Mhm.
early on, and God, he was phenomenal back in
Yeah,
it, and it's still in open water swimming still wasn't what it is today. But God, he was so good, and he would have won an Olympic gold. He was so good. He was amazing to watch in open water. His strategies by far are the best. I mean, I've watched him race and covered them back early on, and he was just sensational. But we've got to think of our youth development, and coaches need to do a better job at finding those kids.
Mhm.
Look, I competed at the senior level, the open level, and I was swimming the 200s of every stroke when I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And my coach threw me into 1,000 yard freestyle over in Orlando, I think when I was 10. And it's not for everybody. I mean, Maritza Correa was on my swim team and my teammate, and God, she trained a lot of distance with Peter, but you weren't going to throw her into 1,000. And obviously she went on to be, a two-time Olympian and multiple medalist and everything. But it's not for every child, but you got to throw it in, and you're going to find those ones. And there's going to be that young age group athlete that is going to get hooked with open water. And then you're going to have other ones that fear it. But we
Mhm.
have to do a better job of getting that if we are going to compete, because that's one area where I really feel that we are so far behind.
I 1000% agree. We need more exposure, whether it's a Saturday morning practice and you just take the kids to the beach and you have a fun
Yep.
picnic afterwards, but just having that experience and, as you said, picking out those swimmers that may excel in it and getting them exposed to it at an early age will make all of the difference when it
Yep.
comes to competing at the national stage. And it's been a lot of fun since 2008 watching where swimming has gone and where it's going to continue to go. And so I only hope that people take that advice and, start a little bit earlier.
Yes, yes.
You've talked about how much you're enjoying your 40s and the opportunity to, try new things. What have been some of the most meaningful and surprising experiences lately?
I in the last few years, I've dove into USLA lifeguarding competitions,
Mhm.
as I'm a part-time lifeguard out on Clearwater Beach. I constantly, like you said at the beginning, wearing all these different hats.
Yes.
But again, it's water. It's kind of the waterman sport. So you can tell I just gravitate to those. And when I say that if I'm an athlete, water has to be involved some way,
Yeah.
because land sports I'm really not that great at. So doing those competitions, getting more skilled on like the boards, or like the surf ski competition, which is like a long skinny kayak, doing races that are mock rescue type things at those. So those are a lot of fun. We have that competition coming up, always at the end of July. And then in January, I became the co-director of Clearwater Law Racing, and that's a multi-sport community group here in Pinellas County. And so, if you're going to be the director of a multi-sport group, you kind of have
Yeah.
to walk the walk, talk the talk. So I've been dabbling back in triathlons a little bit, which funny, I did triathlons as a kid,
Hmm.
and I had a bike accident and came into practice. And Peter's like, "Are you going to be an Olympic triathlete or an Olympic swimmer? You think we need to put this one on hold because you dislocate your shoulder or something? It's going to set you back." So I now can go into some triathlons. I did my first Olympic distance
Hmm.
at St. Anthony's in April. And then I'm going to be doing some fun relays coming up the end of the summer, in the fall. Um, but I'm not swimming.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
actually biking.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So so there I can't fully open up about it. There's a lot of like logistics and stuff, but the funny thing is that my training right now requires me to spend a lot of time on a bike.
On the land.
Yes. So, yes, yes. And so I'm learning new muscle development in my
Yeah.
legs, having some setbacks because my swimming flow body is not used to the regiment on being on a bike or doing some running. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of learning, training, going to physical therapy, um, learning how to do a better job listening to my body,
Yeah.
that where most people would say, don't you need to take a break or rest, or do you take a day off? And I don't schedule a day off. I have to let them happen. Life is crazy, as
Yeah.
working and wearing all these different hats. So I kind of let that flow, or when my body is like, no, you need a day off. But like today was an easy ride. It was about 50 minutes. but why wouldn't you take the day out? It was a recovery, nice ride in the
Mhm.
morning. But so it's fun to take on those challenges because I have no idea a lot of times, like if I have to go ride 2.5 hours or 3 hours, um, how my body is going to respond and how my body is going to recover versus I could train for a marathon swim. I could do like Alligator Lighthouse, which I love.
Yeah.
I know how to do it like the back of my hand. I know how my body is going to feel in an 8 mile swim. I'll always do those as long as I can, but it's fun to throw new things and see how they stick. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
No, that's absolutely incredible. And I can tell you're constantly on the go. I don't know when you find time to sleep these days.
I go to bed at like 8:30.
Yeah. I mean, with all of the activities, like, I bet it's instant.
I tell them on the weekends, I'm like, my boys want to stay up late. And I'm like, I can't. Like, they sleep
Sorry.
their weekend, sleep on the couch. Go, you're old enough now. I'm
Yeah.
going to bed, turn the TV off, fall asleep. I'm an early riser. I like to train early in the morning. But if you catch me after 9 o'clock, it's very rare.
Yeah, I understand. Just one last question to kind of
Yep.
wrap everything up. So, for other athletes navigating life after sport, what advice would you offer about staying active, open, and curious?
I would say one, be kind to yourself. Give yourself time to mourn is a heavy word,
Yeah.
but there is a little bit of it. It's a tough transition, and it doesn't even mean an athlete that has been at the Olympic level. It's an athlete that was at the collegiate level. I we have a part-time lifeguard that started with Clearwater Beach this year, and he swam D1 out of college and ran into some shoulder issues, and I see it in him. He's struggling with knowing his collegiate career is done, and it's hard on any level. So reflect on the moments. You know Give yourself credit for what you accomplish. All good things, I guess, do come to an end. But be open-minded to kind of what the future is. And uncertainty is scary, but it kind of goes along with the same saying, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. So I've kind of, in my times of uncertainty, tried to go back to that,
Yeah.
and that it's okay to kind of have that uncertainty or that fear. And a lot of times I go back to, as a kid, if somebody said to go jump off that tree branch, you didn't think about the negative outcome of
Yeah.
like you could end up with a broken bone. You just did it as a kid. There was no fear of it. So I think when the careers or the athletics have to change, um, it doesn't mean that it's over. And I think I felt I had to be out of swimming for so long because it was done at that level. But what I found is I love it maybe more now than I ever did,
Yeah.
just differently. And my dad told me, when I started going into triathlons and I did my first triathlon, it was a duathlon because the swim got canceled in December. He told me beforehand, he says, go have fun. He goes, you have nothing to prove.
Hmm.
And I am like, and it was the same thing that he told me then as a kid. I have nothing to prove. And I have nothing to prove other than go out and enjoy myself.
Yeah.
So like whatever that is, just go out and give it your best, and don't feel like you're letting yourself down or anybody else down, because if you're living life and you're having fun and you're staying healthy and active, that's all that matters.
Yeah. That was perfect timing.
There goes.
No, that's absolutely incredible. And I know that anyone listening to this conversation today is going to hear your passion about swimming, and it's going to help so many out there. And, CFY and yourself, you're helping so many out there already. So thank you again for
Yeah.
taking your time to speak with me today. All right, everyone. everybody. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode just as much as I did. Brooke's story reminds us that swimming is about so much more than medals. It's about passion, growth, and making a lasting impact. Whether it's advocating for water safety, encouraging kids to be active, or embracing new chapters in her own life, Brooke continues to be a role model in and out of the pool. If you would like to check out Clearwater for Youth's website, I will link it here and I will also put it in the details below. Highly recommend going to check it out. They have a lot of great resources listed there. A huge thank you to the International Swim Coaches Association and also Swimming World Magazine. Without their help, this podcast would not be possible. If you would like to stay up to date on all things Lane 1 Making Waves, I am going to list all of our social media handles here and also put them in the description below. Like, share, follow, give us a shout out, comment what resonated most with you for this episode. So with that, I will catch you all next time.